In June of 2022, right-wing pundit and dripped-out thug Jordan Peterson uploaded a 15-minute address to YouTube.
Hello, everyone.
Donning a suit and a self-serious tone, he describes his latest skirmish with tyranny on the culture war front. The video, now sitting at 3 million views, is titled Twitter Ban. But less than a minute into the video, it becomes clear that this title is a half-truth. Jordan wasn't actually banned from Twitter, or any social media. Twitter had suspended his account, but they promised to restore it if he deleted this tweet.
The suspension will not be lifted unless I delete the hateful tweet in question.
But, as Jordan reasonably states in the video, he
I would rather die than do that.
The 60-year-old PhD closes with these thoughtful and now famous words.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who. Culture war front. I would rather die than do that.
Like this. You're doomed. Why are you not afraid?
That video is pretty funny. And I think part of why is because of the incongruity. JP frames himself as a serious intellectual, but also he's really into the culture war. He's a psychologist, but also he's tired of all this woke crap. And he uses the violent language of right-wing provocateurs. Can't say for certain why he does it, but I'm certain that he knows as well as we do that it gets more clicks. I mean, people love to sensationalize their enemies, right? People love to see themselves as some kind of underdog in a big, important war. And when we don't have boogeymen to fear, we can always create one. Of course, this is nothing new, right? For decades, Americans have been screaming at their TVs while their favorite pundits tell them that they are under attack. At the end of every day, though, people would always be able to turn off their TV and return to the real world. But since the rise of social media, this dynamic has seen a frightening evolution. Now, when people shout into the void shouts back. This is a video about dissonance, and in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to reconcile both the absurd and tragic sides of Jordan Peterson. I'll cover how he fits into a social media landscape that's built to spread fear and divide people, and I'll unmask Elon's surprisingly unique role in this pipeline. But more on that later. So Peterson's article Twitter ban has obviously aged very poorly. I'm of course referring to Elon's purchase of Twitter just a few months later, and on X.com, tweets like this are not suppressed. No, they are actively promoted. And a month ago, Elon Musk, owner of Twitter, and owner of Libs, asserted his right-wing values on a podcast with, guess who? Jordan Peterson. I watched it for this video, and my God, it is feature length. So, it's perfect for a movie night with the missus. Yeah, sit your girl down, throw on the interview, and pause repeatedly to explain every single thing to her. In the podcast, they discuss how other social media platforms are killing free speech because they're so liberal and woke. But that's never really been the case. I mean, social media is designed to keep you engaged, right? That's the whole business model. And in the context of political content, that typically means media that keeps you distressed and outraged at the other side. And conservatives have succeeded in that environment, very much so. I mean, look no further than Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and, goes without saying, but also...
Oh, I know. You're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader. You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the president.
So in short, no, these two famous, powerful men are not the downtrodden underdog. I mean, one of them is literally the richest man alive. And the other one, and I cannot stress this enough, is the drippiest man on earth. And they want us to take this all seriously. But if you look closely, you'll notice that it's a mirage. So with that being said, let's talk about the interview, or at least the interesting parts. The podcast opens like...
It's ridiculously exciting to be here.
Yeah, JP just wants to jump out of his chair and yell yippee, but he's so serious and smart that he's not allowed to, guys. He's just not allowed. And he wants us to know that the boogeymen he's discussing are just as serious as he is.
To Caitlyn Jenner's credit, Jenner said, I would really much prefer to be misgendered than have nuclear war.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So
and while it's sort of perhaps funny and ridiculous at this stage,
it's not that funny.
I mean...
And when he does try to be lighthearted, half the time he sounds on the verge of tears.
I might stay there if they didn't have to sleep on the couch. And I found it actually to be
I think it's very funny that you stayed on the couch. I think that's very funny.
That's actually not that funny, Jordan.
I'm not stay on the couch that often.
Of course, while Peterson does a mostly good job of presenting as an intellectual, his inner quack comes through in beautiful moments such as this. So for context, Elon is talking about how he injured his spine while wrestling a heavyweight because Elon is so Sigma and cool.
Carnivore diet will fix that.
The what, sorry?
The carnivore diet will fix that.
I don't think a carnivore diet is going to fix this particular issue. I think
my wife had an injury of 40 years,
okay.
And it resolved in 2
Just
years on a carnivore diet. It also rejuvenated her physically in a variety of different ways that were quite miraculous.
If you just eat steak or something?
Yeah.
Come on, what's wrong, Elon? Are you too much of a soy boy for the based and red pill carnivore diet? Yeah, we only eat raw red meat and we drink the blood of vegans. Jordan Peterson here reminds me of those nofap guys on Reddit who think that not masturbating gives them magical powers. You know, bucko, I had back pain for 40 years before I tried semen retention. I stopped busting and my spine was cured. This man was a clinical psychologist. I mean, imagine being his client. So we've covered the smokescreen that these men uphold. I've hopefully demonstrated that what they're saying is pretty silly. But not everybody agrees with me. For many people, the gripes that these two are discussing
Culture war front
are very real and dangerous.
You're doomed.
I would rather die.
And you could dismiss those people as stupid or crazy. But the truth is far simpler and far sadder. Like I said before, social media algorithms silo people off based on their beliefs. Here's a thorough study from 2021 that documents just that. I'll link it below, you know, if you're a freaking nerd.
What do you read, studies?
And in their words, their data shows how online dynamics are dominated by echo chambers which may influence policymaking and the evolution of public debate, especially on polarizing topics. And guys, obviously this isn't exclusive to just Republicans. I'm not saying that, of course. But as we previously covered, the polarizing nature of social media has really normalized socially conservative and even authoritarian beliefs. Movements like Gamergate began to prove this over a decade ago. I mean, if you can convince teenage boys that video games are under attack, you could get them to commit war crimes. The bigotry of these movements is often disguised under relatable, innocuous content, and then taps into people's existing fears and biases. I mean, Jordan Peterson started off as just a self-help guy for teenage boys. Yeah, it's weird. Peterson would just say shit like, clean your room, and guys like my buddy Evan would call him the modern-day Socrates. And then Evan's mom would tell him to clean his room, and he would call her a bitch. The point is, JP isn't just a self-help guy. He's a lightning rod for bigotry.
Then the extremely active intervention that constitutes so-called gender-confirming, another hated phrase, surgery. I might also point out that the trans surgery enterprise is now a $300 million per annum growth industry, an expanding enterprise with this vicious and unconscionable fad.
Yeah, I can see why Jordan's so pressed about real boys, considering this is how he feels about Pinocchio.
Scene in Pinocchio where Geppetto wishes on a star. He says, what I want, what I want more than anything else is that my creation will become a genuine individual. And that makes you into the sort of person that won't be an Auschwitz guard, that won't play ideological games, that won't sacrifice other people to their expedience.
And look, I'm making a lot of jokes here, but Peterson isn't just a wacky Republican. He has done and continues to do serious damage to trans people with the misinformation he spreads.
This is the worst medical and psychological malpractice I've ever seen anywhere. Even the sorts of things that were going on in Nazi Germany, at least the bloody Nazis knew it was wrong.
Let's say you're a middle-aged parent with conservative leanings, and your kid comes out as trans. This may clash with your fundamental understanding of gender, and that clash could be uncomfortable and scary, even as you're told that rejecting your child's identity would only harm them. But guys like Peterson push you to listen to your fears, to reject this new reality.
If there's a higher suicide rate, the reason is because of the underlying depression and anxiety and not because of the gender dysphoria. And every goddamn clinician knows that. And they're too cowardly to come out and say it.
These guys tell you that you don't have to accept your kid as trans.
So you're telling parents that unless they agree to this radical transformation that their children are going to die, and you think that's moral.
Your fears aren't wrong, they're righteous.
I can't imagine a therapist doing anything worse than that.
You are protecting children from the evil far-left enemy, and thus the dissonance is resolved. But it comes at the expense of your child. So it sucks when he gets a viral interview. It sucks when he gets booked for a major show like Kill Tony, because it means that many more people are going to be exposed to his false statements about trans people, like millions already have. Of course, millions of people don't get transformed like that overnight. No, often they start with a Jordan Peterson video because they want to just clean their room, but they get radicalized over months or years by online echo chambers that feed their biases. And as that previous study concluded, when polarization is high, misinformation quickly spreads. And guys, it has spread. I know that you know it, because you've probably felt it in your own life. Because it's not just a crazy person on the street corner shouting conspiracies anymore. It's infected so many people, and nobody is immune. Not your parents, not your spouses, and not even the CEOs who run these platforms. And that brings us back to that Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk interview. Now, this is my final and most important argument. So I obviously believe that Elon Musk has contributed a lot to radicalization online. But I would argue that he is just as much a victim of it. Now, hear me out here. I don't think Elon Musk is a good person. But I do think he is a person. He's just a regular, middle-aged, conservative guy. He's like your uncle if he inherited an emerald mine. Point is, I think like a lot of terminally online folks, Elon Musk has just drank a lot of Kool-Aid. His decade-long Twitter addiction is well documented in his autobiography by Walter Isaacson. But it's also well documented on his Twitter. I mean, just look at it. And because of his intense online presence, we've seen his views transform in real time. We've seen how he's been radicalized further and further to the right and had his own personal fears and biases inflamed by online echo chambers. Of course, just because he posted progressive tweets doesn't mean he was progressive. But it does tell us, at the very least, that there was a time in his life when he felt the social pressure to be publicly progressive. Now, he retweets Nazi conspiracies during his morning G Fuel. I mean, that demonstrates just how far down the rabbit hole he's fallen. It also tells us a little bit about who used to be in his life and who he surrounds himself with now. Throughout the interview, Musk and JP talk a lot about the perils of wokeness. And what is wokeness exactly, by the way? Because nobody really has a great definition. I think, especially in this context, it's really whatever liberal stuff conservatives don't like. It's a buzzword like AI, you know? Which, speaking of, I'm glad you brought that up, by the way. They talk about AI quite a few times in this interview. At one point, Jordan alludes to the dangers of AI and asks Elon how his AI platform will be more ethical than others. And Elon says,
we'll strive to avoid some of the pitfalls or directions that the others are going in, because the others, they are, I think, trained to be politically correct. And the woke mind virus is woven in throughout them.
oh, cool. What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, the whole problem with AI is basically just that it's lame and woke. We gotta make an AI that's cool and racist, like me. Elon rallies on and on and on about the woke mind virus and the damage it's done to the world. But here's the thing. The subtext here, if you look closely, is the damage that it's done to Elon's life and the way it's affected the people he loves.
Most people are going to love their kids.
They also want to love you.
They do.
Kids, if you give them the chance.
4 years ago, Elon's child came out to him as trans, and they are now estranged, at least in part, because Elon does not accept her gender identity.
The so-called gender-affirming care, which is a terrible euphemism, it's really a child sterilization. It's evil.
Literally
I think
can't
it's evil.
imagine anything worse than that.
And I agree with you that people that have been promoting this should go to prison. It happened to one of my older boys.
Now, you don't need to be a disbarred psychologist to see that Elon is in pain here. He's a man in pain who's lashing out at his 20-year-old daughter. It's vicious. It's cruel. And it shows the irony of Elon's whole woke mind virus shtick. I mean, he's so convinced that other people are wrong, that their ideas are poisoning them. He hasn't even considered the possibility that he may have developed a mind virus of his own.
I love you, Donald. God bless America, and God bless the United States of America.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet-ass P-word. Pay my tuition just to kiss me on this wet-ass P. Right, so this is what feminists watch for.
Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris on Instagram. Elon Musk, he saw that. Fine, Taylor, you win. I will give you a child and guard your
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
with my life.
These women are describing a serious gynecological condition.
Oh, you like my buddy Felix's shirt?
I love that.
Felix, by the way.
I mean, a bucket and a mop?
I won't pretend to know the behind the scenes of a father and daughter's relationship. What I do know is that Elon Musk publicly is transphobic, and he has publicly stated that his own child is, quote, dead to him because she transitioned. This is unfortunately a very common experience for young trans people, and people often link depression to the trans experience. But studies show again and again that when trans youth have the support of their parents, their mental health improves dramatically.
They also want to love you.
They do.
Kids, if you give them the chance.
They do.
They're the only people you'll ever meet in your life who want nothing more than to have the best possible relationship with you.
And when you hear Peterson say that all this trans stuff is crazy, just remember that a half an hour ago, he said,
Carnivore diet will fix that.
This interview is a case study, because as rich and powerful as Elon is, he still found himself in the same sad spot as much of America and beyond. Estranged from family, from friends, all because he led himself down a rabbit hole of hate, a hole that only leads into an endless vacuum. Alone and angry in the wasteland where he's made himself king.
I lost my son. The reason it's called dead naming is because son is dead. Killed by the woke white